Do you remember when buying a home didn't feel like a financial minefield?
While I'm taking pictures of the issues with my house to send to the attorney, I'm like, why not share with the internet?
Homes can seem like a great deal until the hidden fees start piling up.
$28,000. That's the official update on price for what it's going to cost us to fix the house that we just bought.
Today, we are diving into the unexpected pitfalls of buying a budget-friendly home and how to avoid some of these problems so your dream home does not turn into a nightmare. Give me a thumbs up if you're good with that. First on the list is location, and we talk a lot about location. Location can have a huge impact on a home's value, and some of this can not be so obvious. Some of the more obvious things can be just a poor neighborhood with high crime rates, which will ultimately affect, your entire well-being of how you live in your home, being at work and worrying about packages being stolen off of your doorstep or whatever. But there's other things that can impact the location and the price of the homes. First, I just want to say if you are worried about crime rate, I like to use neighborhoodscout.com. They have a couple of different really good maps that will show different neighborhoods with crime. I like to use two maps. I like to use their crime map and I like to use their appreciation map because if a neighborhood has crime but is appreciating, there's a good chance that this is a nice turning neighborhood. If you don't see any appreciation, there's probably people moving out of the area. But some of the more less common things that you might not see right up front about a home's location is whether the home is possibly going through legal issues such as eminent domain, which is actually happening here in the Wenatchee area. If you are looking at a property that is close to a highway or a big road that is going through expansion, there's a good chance that the government is going to take part of your property. And this can be a very costly battle to fight. And you're probably going to have to get an attorney to help you to make sure that you're getting fair value. It would be a real bummer to purchase a home just to learn that it's going to be taken by the government. Other things that the location can really be impacted by is whether the home is in a flood zone or a fire hazard zone, which is kind of a new thing happening, especially here on the West Coast. Make sure you are looking at these flood zone maps and you are calling insurance companies that you can get insurance on these homes. A lot of these homes that are located outside of fire districts have significantly higher insurance premiums if they can get insurance at all. This is going to impact your monthly payment and the person who purchases the home after you, their monthly expenses, so it will affect your resale value as well. So make sure that you're checking into this before you purchase a home. Other issues that I have seen happen with clients with zoning and stuff, or city or county law and regulation. I had a client who was going to add a second living unit in his basement, and it didn't take a lot of renovations to do. He was just going to add a little kitchenette, didn't need to move walls, wasn't adding any bathrooms, nothing like that. The city came back to him and told him in order to do that, he needed to move a fence line, reconfigure his driveway, and pour a sidewalk on the side of his house. There was no other sidewalks on the street. Just this fix alone cost him $25,000. Outdated wiring, which could be anything from aluminum wiring to wiring that's wrapped in paper where the insulation on them is no longer good. Electrical boxes, electrical panels. There is a lot of electrical panels out there that have been recalled. Here is a list of a few of them. This is so dangerous, and making sure that a home has proper wiring is incredibly important. If you're the DIYer, this is not something that you want to be doing, and you can expect to pay anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 to have a home rewired. So that will get expensive very quickly. Okay, while we're talking about the guts of the house, let's talk about plumbing. Plumbing has gone through generations of changing from cast iron to galvanized to copper to PEX to polybutylene. There has been a lot of different plumbing out there, and the reality of it is anything that is metal, it deteriorates over time. And especially in older homes, you are going to see where people have patchwork together plumbing. You're going to see plastic connected to copper, connected to galvanized. It is an absolute mess. And replumbing a house is not cheap. If you see any of this type of stuff in a house, you know there's more issues coming down the road if the house has not been totally replumbed. Replumbing a house is going to be anywhere from $3,000 to $20,000 depending on the size of the home. Of course, it can go higher than that. So it's not cheap and it's not easy to do. We're talking about ripping out sheetrock to get to this plumbing, and you will be living in a construction zone while this is happening. So understand this when you're looking at a cheap home. I got to talk about polybutylene or poly-B plumbing, which was really popular from 1978 to 1995. There's a lot of homes that has the polybutylene plumbing in it. This was kind of the very beginning of PEX plumbing. What happens with this stuff is its fittings and the piping just bursts out of nowhere inside your walls, and you don't know about it until you've had enough water damage start seeping through, which typically means mold on the inside, possible rot to your framing. It's a really bad situation. And let me tell you, anytime that you have a water issue and there's mold involved, your insurance company is not going to cover any of it because they're going to claim that it was a pre-existing condition. So this poly-B plumbing, it is not good. It is so not good that there was actually two massive class action lawsuits against the company who was creating, and they resulted in almost $1 billion of payouts. And there was 2.7 million homes that were affected by this stuff. When you are looking at homes that were built between those eras, check the plumbing and make sure there's not polybutylene in it. Okay, plumbing has all sorts of issues, but I'm going to talk about wells since it's more common than you think. Right now, in my house, I have a well. The well is fine, the pump is fine, but the pressure tank under it just went out, and that is going to be a $4,000 fix just to replace that pressure tank. I will admit, when I purchased this home, I did not have a well test, and that is shame on me because a well can cost $20,000 to replace, and that's before even having to dig. So if you're on a well, get that pressure system checked. Plumbing, we also need to talk about sewage. So if you're on well, you're probably on septic, and septic tanks, they are disgusting when they back up. It's going to put, stuff back up into your house. It's going to flood your yard. It's going to stink. And replacing a septic tank, if it has had catastrophic failure, it can be $50,000. And that's kind of like on the good side too. So get the septic inspected, absolute must on a cheap house. If you are on city sewer, your job's a little bit simpler, but get that sewer line scoped. Especially in older homes, they used cast iron and concrete for those pipes that go from your house to the city main, which is your responsibility. With these older ones, we see a lot of deterioration, and if there's a lot of mature landscape in the area, we see tree roots grow through them, cracking them, breaking them, blocking them. Fixing a sewage line means digging up your yard, and it's going to cost you anywhere between $2,000 and $20,000 to replace that pipe. You can see where a cheap home can start adding up really quickly when you have a couple of these items that need to be done. And we're not even talking about making it pretty. We're just talking about the guts of the home. Okay, listen to this guy.
Holy crap, this is the worst foundation damage I've seen all year.
Okay, tiny cracks in a foundation might seem harmless, but it also can be a sign of a really big problem. You will likely feel this when you walk into a house. It's going to feel uneven. Here's some more.
Now look at all this patching. That's a lot of patching on this masonry block, but check it out down here. When you move away, your house isn't supposed to move with you.
That is a major red flag. Fixing a foundation can be as simple as somebody just rebalancing it, maybe a $3,000 fix, but on significantly damaged foundations, you are talking about lifting a home up, not cheap, and you are talking about probably $100,000 to fix bad foundation. So, foundation inspection probably should be on the list. Remember the girl at the beginning of the video who was recording stuff for her attorney? Listen to what's going on in her home.
Okay, there's more. There's more. There's more. Wait for it. Oh my God.
She's having some severe structural issues. There's more.
We have this. Goes behind the bookcase. All along that wall. Here we go.
She probably didn't know that this was happening when she purchased the house. And I'm sure there had to have been signs somewhere, but it was missed. Anyways, these are terrible situations to be in, and they leave me speechless. Just make sure you have a good inspector. Okay, with structural issues, we kind of talked about you'd feel them a little bit when you walk into a house. The house is going to be uneven. Other signs that there might be some structural issues besides the foundations cracking, windows won't open, doors won't open or close fully. With structural issues, we also want to talk about the roof. And, a roof's lifespan 20, 50 years, and having the sheeting on it, whether that's metal or shingles or clay tile, replaced, that's not such a huge issue. What is going to be an issue is if you are looking at this roof and you are seeing any sort of bowing happening, that means that there's some structural issues with the trusses. Once again, in older homes, I see a lot of trusses that are just nailed together and they don't have any more modern braces on them. And fixing this, once again, is not an easy fix. It means they need to pull your sheeting off. They need to pull your shingles off. They need to pull the trusses out and re-roof that house completely. This is not a cheap fix, and you're going to go without a roof for a while. So any type of bowing, have a specialist take a look at it. Okay, next on our list is heating and cooling systems, and these kind of have a short lifespan, like 10, 15 years, so not a very long time, and they're expensive. I just had to replace the HVAC in my home, and it was $15,000. My home's already piped for it too. So that was just for the mechanics and them putting in a new system. So very, very expensive. Make sure that you are getting any sort of maintenance records on these things. Now they've got mini splits, which are pretty cool. I think if I was to do it again, I'd probably put in mini splits. Anyways, that is on a traditional type of HVAC system. If the HVAC system is old or dated and used an oil system, there's likely an oil tank on the property, and these need to be removed. It doesn't cost a lot to have these removed, and it's very important that you do so because the couple $1,000s to have them removed can save you tons of money. If any oil contaminates the ground around your house, you will be held responsible for that. And it can cost tens of thousands. I've heard people pay over $100,000 to clean up the contaminated soil around their properties. So make sure if you see any signs that there was an oil tank on that property, you need to have a specialist out there looking at it. Okay, next up is safety concerns. And we touched on mold a little bit, but there are a lot of other safety concerns that can be lurking in a house. Homes that have been built before 1978, there's a good chance that there's lead-based paint somewhere in that house, which will need to be disclosed by the seller if they know of any lead-based paint in the home. And it can be very costly to have this removed and the home repainted. Other things that we see a lot of is asbestos. And this can be in lights, this can be in insulation, this can be in flooring. Homes built in the 60s, I see a lot of asbestos exterior siding, and this should not be removed DIY. You need, wait, DIY? Do it yourself. DIY. Yeah, I said that right. Okay. These are not things that should be done by yourself. You need to have a professional come in. It could make somebody very sick if they are not properly geared and this stuff is not properly disposed of. It's not cheap, but it needs to be done. A hidden safety issue that can happen in some homes and should be reported in all states, and I don't know that it is, but if the home was used as some sort of drug lab or there was any drug activity happening inside of the home, the chemicals that are in the walls, the paint, the door, everything can make you very sick. So you need to know if you're buying a cheap house and it was foreclosed on or repoed by the bank, you need to know if there was any drug activity in that home. Now, buying a cheap house does not mean that it's always going to be a money pit. There are great deals out there of people who just need to sell their home quickly. But it is very important. Spend the money to get an inspection. They cost anywhere between $200 and $1,000. In my area, it's about $500 for a home inspection. And if you can find one thing wrong with the house, that inspection has paid for itself. And let me tell you what, every home comes up with things on the home inspection. So do your due diligence, have the house checked out, check with the county, and I hope you found this video helpful. I'm Amanda Dallman, your no BS real estate resource, and I will see you next week. Thank you for joining.